This is just a quick plug to announce that on the 7th of February, I will be speaking at a webinar for the Italian Strength and Conditioning Society. My topic is leadership and soft skills in high performance sport. The webinar will be hosted at 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. GMT +1. You can get access to the webinar through the link in the description. And by taking part of this webinar, you will get 1 educational credit. Hello and welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have 2 guests. One that's been here before, and we're welcoming Jared Woods and Kenna Smoak-Minnici back on the podcast. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. We just started back with the 1,100 cadet athletes at West Point on Monday. We had been around though because basketballs, hockey, wrestling with all our winter sports. But we're excited to get the spring sports going and just start a new year.
Nice. It's always fun when I see coaches going back into their seasons, because it's like it's chaos, and then it's just like calm.
That's the best time though, the chaos, the calm of the storm. But I mean, nothing better than it. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Love it. See, I know you've been on before, and we had an awesome conversation around experimenting with programming and how essentially you come up with these new concepts and just different ways of thinking about programming. Now, I kind of impose the question to you that I respect your opinion on this. I knew exactly who to ask when I came up with this question. But it's around jump performance and how we as coaches, and I kind of mentioned this to Jared yesterday when we were kind of going back and forward on some topics, and it's how coaches are using force plates. Are they as needed as coaches are making it out to be? And is there a system that can work better and we get essentially more time with our athletes in the weight room?
Yeah, I think they're definitely a part of the puzzle. If you have them and you're able to use them, it can definitely help give you an insight into what's going on within your athletes. I mean, I think it's especially good for your jumping sports. We were talking about it, like your basketballs, your volleyballs, ones that where jumping is your bread and butter. Like, I think it's really good for them, but you also can't put all your eggs in the force plate basket. You can't just rely on that solely.
I've been in Army a while, but I've been at other places where we did not have this sense of technology. I know other coaches that don't have force plates, or even if they could buy them, it might not be in the best means to use their budget. There are other ways to get the job done without force plates, but in some settings, it might make it more efficient. And we work out of a few facilities, and what do we have? 2 force plates, and they travel. Someday we kind of have to call dibs on who needs the force plates that day and to prioritize like what we were talking about with the systems. But I feel like sometimes if it's going to take away training, then you have to ask yourself why. And I have a jumping sport, basketball. I've had volleyball a long time as well too. Those are really easy sports to get buy-in because your athletes jump all the time. They want to see those numbers. They know it directly correlates performance. You can take that report and easily go to your sport coach, and they're speaking the same language because they see them do that. I have other sports where they're like, well, why does my pitcher need to jump higher? And then so that's a whole nother conversation of buy-in of oh, well, this correlates to this, which correlates to this. For me, I also am very confident to just be able to be like, okay, do they squat 1.7 times their body weight for a male athlete? Because we know, I'm from Alabama, but way before he was there, but Ray, him doing, finding that, if you squat 1.7 times your body weight as a male athlete, and then you can tinker into do we need to go more power based or do we need to go more speed based? But if you aren't hitting that threshold, then I'm pretty safe to say, why don't we just get stronger? Yeah, I kind of went off, but
I mean, that's exactly how it is. It's just reinforcing what you're saying. If a guy doesn't squat 1.7 times his body weight, I mean, his force output and everything on the force plate probably isn't going to be as high as someone who can do that or is a little more bouncier. So it's just reinforcing what you're seeing. It's just a part of the puzzle, and that's kind of how I use it here in the setting.
I think what you were mentioning on message as well, kind of when we were going back and forward, is depending on obviously how many metrics you're measuring. And again, I kind of want you to break down what exactly you're measuring, but are we able to just go off jump mats where, yes, they're not as reliable, but we're still getting those key metrics that we can make decisions on? But before we get into the jump mat area, I'd kind of like to ask, what are you measuring? How many metrics are you actually considering to making these decisions for your athletes?
So, I mean, the main one is we have two big ones that we look at. We look at three, but two we would look at for like making a decision. If we do, it would be your MRSI and then your peak power per body mass. So I mean, just how explosive you are, and then like how much power you can produce relative to what you weigh. And then we'll also do the jump height. Your athletes understand how high
Yeah.
15 inches is compared to 20 inches. They understand that one. That's the one that we'll show them. But I think for us, like
Yeah.
the bread and butter is like your MRSI and your peak power per body.
Going back to
body
the
weight.
why are we tracking this? Well, if we're tracking it to make performance or like programming decisions for better performance, if we know how quick someone gets off the ground and then how much force they can put into the ground, we then are able to, make those programming decisions, right? We know if someone is extremely like quick off the ground, but maybe not producing much force, that person needs to get stronger. We know if someone is, putting a ton of force into the ground, but it takes them a while to use that force, we know that's not going to translate to speed. We know that their programming needs to, maybe have some more VBT work, maybe have more plyometric work, working on like more elastic capabilities. So those are the two things that I need to see to where red light, green light, what does this person need to do? What does this person need to do? And then we've made dashboard or,
Yeah, we have
the
such
quadrants
yeah.
of like, if someone's good at both, keep doing what you're doing. If someone's bad at both, get stronger. And then if someone, like what I just said, is quick but doesn't have force, or has force but not quick, then that's where you can make those changes in the programming.
Yeah, and you can kind of tailor it towards what they need.
No, that makes sense. And as well, I think a piece that gets missed sometimes in programming is the balancing aspect of your athletes. So it's exactly what you're saying. Like if he's fast but on the weaker side, he's probably needs to get stronger, and vice versa. If he's a bit strong but he can't move very quickly, introducing some speed and some power work might not be the worst ideas ever. Is there anything that if you had time and it would help make some more decisions, what other metric would you sort of look at to give you more data on your athletes?
I mean, there's a lot. So I mean, like for example, like so for my basketball team, we'll test during our lifts, which is post practice. So if we were doing it before and like we were able to go with in like a readiness, you could look at contraction time, jump depth, all that stuff to see a readiness metric, and then from there, another one, not like readiness, but you could look at eccentric deceleration, RFD. If you want to have a big concentric impulse, you need to have a big eccentric. If you're going to jump big, you got to be able to decel big to get up as high as you can. So I think we've looked at it a little bit, but a coach isn't really going to understand that stuff. So we put our bread and butter in the two that we just mentioned. But I mean, there's the amount of metrics you can get is endless, but you just got to have a problem and then find out what you need and then find out which metric can then go ahead and help you solve that problem.
And I think also the more into the metrics you get, the more you need to tailor it to your sport. I know, like I've looked more at the eccentric single leg values when I'm looking like at pitchers in the past, because if you look at their motion that they do all the time, they should have like more eccentric braking force on that front leg and more concentric force on that back leg, right? Looking at the throwing motion. And then we can like speak on other sports, like when you look at like volleyball, you're going to see an asymmetry, on which leg that they jump, like an outside hitter, what leg they jump out off of repetitively. And then I mean, you could speak more on the soccers, and like you could get really in the weeds of not only sport but position if you wanted to on all these metrics. But when you deal with a high volume of athletes, and once again, like do you need to go through all those metrics unless you're getting that specific in your programming, would be my next question.
Yeah, and it depends on the time you're testing it too.
Yeah.
Do be consistent with your testing, and then like you also got to realize what's going to affect it. If you're before practice, it's easy. You can kind of look at more readiness stuff if you want to, but if you're post practice, then you got to take into account what happened at practice. So it just depends on the timing as well. So I think that's a big thing with it is you got to think about.
And then I will get in like the jump mats. Like we also have jump mats too. And I definitely, one year I used just jump mats with volleyball because we did it pre-practice. And so I could literally jump that, or they would lift pre-practice, jump, and then I could literally text the coach who was plus or minus 10% right then and there. I know some people are able and have the capabilities to do that on the force deck as well, but with where our force deck was located, what weight room that day, the day I wanted it, it just made more sense. Like, what can control? I knew I could always have a jump mat, and I wasn't getting the RSI. I wasn't getting, the
Mhm.
power output. I was just getting inches, but that was enough for readiness for us in that season.
Yeah, I think that's something that I wanted to get into, and just understand, like, although you can't get all the fancy metrics, SIs or MRSI, like, you can still make somewhat informed decisions for you on the day to determine where your athletes are. This is a quick shout out to our main sponsor on this channel, TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder is all-in-one platform that hosts programs, questionnaires, testing, anything that you may need for your athlete's performance. You can host it in TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder also now has 2 different sites, which is OS and Practice. For more information on TeamBuilder, check out the link in the description. And if you use code PAChalkup all together, you will get a 30-day free trial.
I mean, you can, as long as you're consistent with it. It doesn't matter what you use, whether it's a jump mat, a Vertec,
Right.
or chalk on your finger jumping up and touching a wall. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but as long as you're consistent and you're doing it every day, then you can build out data. And if you look at a 10% drop off, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing it consistently throughout, that's the biggest thing that matters. If you have a jump mat, if you don't, whatever you have, just consistently tracking it and then using it.
I had this article a while ago that I posted up somewhere. And it was essentially, so in this industry, we always like the gold standard, the medical grade testing equipment. But I was kind of challenging my thoughts, and I was like, okay, can we make the camera on your phone and the apps that you can get specific enough so that I can test myself in a jump? And like, obviously it's not as accurate as a force plate, but if I jump enough times with the software on my phone, I could essentially get accurate results.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's consistent and,
Yeah.
what is it? If it's like valid and reliable with what you're getting,
Yeah.
then I don't see why not. I mean, we have some, what is it? Like, there's the one the push. Some of it's wild, like all the portable now VBT software that we have. I don't think we're that far away from having an app on our phone to test our vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already apps there. They're not accurate, but yeah, but it's,
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's like
yeah.
that thing where, like, if you don't have the budget, like, there's still other ways. You might just have to find a
Oh, yeah.
workaround to see how accurate it can be over a period of time.
Yeah, and that's 100% it. Like, you can, whether it's valid, it might not be valid, but if it's reliable and it's still in the same grouping, that's fine, because then you're testing within it, but you can't just jump from one to another each week or each month, because then you're going to be all over the place. I
Yeah.
think that's a big thing to look at it.
Another question I've been sort of trying to answer myself is, should these baseline metrics change throughout the season, or are they, in your cases, the exact same throughout the
I think they should. I mean, I think you have a big baseline, generally know where they're going to be. But like, if you're in your off season, my guys should not be jumping as high as they are right now. I don't need them feeling good in June, July. I need them feeling their best, January, February, March, so like, I think you have a baseline within each section. Like, okay, like, my off season is going to be down a little bit. Preseason, maybe up a little more from off season, but like, still not where you want them to be at. And then once you get in season, okay, this is where I'm expecting them to be, on the up and up at the very top. I just think you have to have expectations for each time of the year. So like, you can have one big baseline, but you just have to know, okay, it's going to be below it, it's going to be above it. And then once you have enough data, okay, we could look at an off-season baseline, preseason, and then here's our end season. Like, past 4 years, we've been around here for MRSI for off-season.
Yeah.
Expect it to go up, and then it should be your highest in your end season.
Yeah. When I've made athlete reports, I like tell my athletes, like, hey, I don't expect you sometimes to be jumping like your best right now. This is my, weight plan right now in the off season isn't doing its job if, we are not, if we're jumping as high as ever. Well, I mean, sometimes things trend up and up. And that's like where context is everything, like that in athletes' training age and, what type of conditioning they're doing that point, or how long the practices are. Cause like, there are going to be times when, like, you're pushing or you're overreaching in the weight room. We're not really concerned about like the jump metrics. we might do them just to see like how much we're reaching, or to see year to year if every, off season, if we're trending higher in the off season. And I know that on my side, the programming's just as hard, then like we're still making progress. So that comes into like just like your long-term development.
Yeah, that's again, Kenna, you introduced me to Pierre Can, and he was on the podcast, and he said the exact same thing where he's like, guys, we're probably going to jump terrible off season. And I asked him, like, how do you get around telling them that and making them understand that that's a normal thing and it's actually will help them in the future? Because like athletes, we all know are competitive, as competitive can be. It's like if it's not going up, they're doing a terrible job. So how does that conversation go when you're like, okay, let's take a step back
I
and
mean,
look at the big picture?
I don't know. Like, yes, they're athletes, they're competitive, but like they're still adults that got admitted to like go to college. So you should be able to explain to like, hey, like you realize how our off season, how hard, how like you might be sore going up and down steps and getting on and off the toilet. That's going to affect your jump. But right now, that's not the goal. The goal is for all the pieces of all the elements that you need to be transferred to like your training to transfer to win 6 months from now. I don't care how you feel right now, or I don't need this to be its best ever. And, so that's where those conversations and you being a coach that can communicate that is like what's key to where they buy in and don't just be like, I'm getting worse.
Yeah, it's just communicating the goals time of year, but also showing them the result.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think if you show them and they see it, and like you say, hey, this jump may have been down from your last one, but if you look at your results from 2 years, your lows are now higher than your previous highs. Your highs are higher than your previous highs. Like your low, just because it's down from last time you had a great last jump. Okay. Think about what you did last week. You're probably still a little sore, still a little fatigued. The weeks after might be down, but then you're going to shoot up once your nervous system's recovered and you're ready to go again. So I think just explaining your goals, letting them see it, because they can see a trend that goes up. Your low that you just jumped is higher than your previous high. So like we're getting better as we go on, even though you might not be feeling just as good because you hit a PR last week. So I think just explaining and showing them that helps them understand.
And then like, if you have an athlete where it doesn't look pretty and it's not going up, like let's have a conversation. Like, ask them, own it. What are you doing differently than your teammates that are getting these results? Is there something out of your control that we need to reel back in or explore, or are you taking care of yourself? I always tell my athletes, like, you can't overtrain, but you can under recover. And those other 23 hours, that's on you. But I'm not overtraining you. So like that goes back to like the coach's eye and like that piece of it to get that buy-in.
Yeah. And what specifically are you doing with like jump mats and how that system falls into your force plates and the availability of them?
So like for us, it's like I mentioned before, we do it post practice, so when we lift. So we'll do it Mondays. So typically the first day of the week, day after an off day, 2 days out from the game. So we'll practice and then we'll have our lift. And then after first set of our squats or first set of A block, I'll start sending my guys over to jump throughout it. So like everyone's warmed up a bit. They're coming from practice. They might still be within their warm up sets for their squats, but they're going over and jumping like continually. So I'll send one over and then they just go down the racks, just grab the next person. Do it once a week. It's just the easiest way, the most time efficient way that I found to do it, because I can fit it within a lift. I don't have to take time away at the beginning or end of a lift or practice. So I think it's just, plus they're already primed a little bit. They're warmed up, so you don't have to do a separate warm up for the force plate.
That's how I do it as well. It's just all about if we're taking away training time to get this data that we may or may not use, that's when it's like not worth it to me. But if we can, fit in our warm up sets, send a rack at a time, and not take away from the training, then I think why not do it?
That's a good idea as well, the cascading as opposed to lining everyone up and getting them through it.
Yeah, because they're going to stay constantly warm. I mean, and then it's just, some guys like to go earlier, some guys like to get a couple sets in. So like it kind of lets them feel good. And sometimes we're like, all right, when you're feeling good, go jump, because some take a little bit longer. So it just helps. And it just helps with the flow of it.
Yeah.
It takes 30 seconds.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, it takes like 30 seconds to jump, go over, come back, you're right to your set.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that you're kind of using it as priming as well. So whether you're on a squat rack doing a movement or you're on jumping,
Yeah.
there is some form of priming in there for the lift.
Yeah, because it's very common for people to pair a plyometric movement with like a barbell, like strength or power movement. So I guess we just like fit in our 4 stack in that same time
Yeah.
allotment and get both,
Yeah.
or jump at like whatever you have at your facility. That's the best utilization of time that we have.
hmm
Yeah. No, I like that. There's a couple. So I was at a conference with Ron McKeefery in the UK a couple months ago. With him being who he is, he's obviously seen a lot of conferences and he's been at a lot of talks. So I was wondering, like, what is it that you're taking nowadays after like pretty much hearing everything from everyone? And he said it really brilliantly, actually. He was like, I'm not necessarily getting new pieces of information, but I'm learning new systems to make it more efficient. And I think that's exactly where that fits in. It's like, it's not necessarily about the jump, it's about like everything else around it to get them through the jump and then straight into their workout.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
And it just helps them, like you said, the system, I mean, it might not be the most optimal way to do it,
Right.
but it's the most optimal for us. And like I said, as long as we're consistent with it, that's going to be, we can see what we need to see with it, because that's what we have to do. Every
Mhm.
place is different, and that's just the best for us.
Yeah.
One force plate for 70 athletes when there's multiple teams. He's got to figure out how to best do it.
Yeah, and then optimal testing doesn't mean anything if you don't have optimal like training, right? Because at the end of the day, for them to perform their best, the time that we have with them to actually train them, like that matters.
What's something that is currently firing you up about this industry individually?
I mean, I think it's really neat how like everyone, like, I don't know, in the basketball world, like everyone's like, no one's really hiding stuff. Like everyone trains, and everyone's like, if you need to call someone up, I think you can call them and they'll help you out, talk through a question. I think that's really neat. They'll share what they do. Every place is different, so you could give your whole program, but it will work for your setting. You got to be able to tailor it to yours. I think just like the community and like being able to reach out and just connecting with other coaches and just chatting if you have a problem, because everyone has different experiences and different answers and more experience or less experience. So everyone has their own kind of way of doing things. So I think that's, especially as like a younger coach, like seeing people like just be open, and able to reach out and not being a challenge.
He went the positive route. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I get fired up. I love this stuff. But so I guess things that get me going, like the aspect of, I see all this stuff, people posting their athletes doing things and everything. And I think the integrity of like actually coaching and making sure people are doing things right and held to a standard sometimes like gets lost. And I think like that is like number one. And I think when we were talking about this force plates of what I said that 1.7 number, right? Like there are certain like thresholds that you have to have, right? Everyone is all about these isometrics right now. They're cool,
Mm.
right? But I see so many people doing them and pushing into things with a really, really bad brace. So like, can we fix that and just get back to like actually coaching people to have some awareness of their body and getting in the right position? So then whatever movement they do will have some sort of standard.
Yeah,
I'll stop.
No, you can keep going. I love this.
I mean, like that. So I guess like that's, when you give an exercise, it should be like, this
Intentional.
is what it should look like. This is what could go wrong. And this is what to watch out for. Right. And you should be able to coach through all those aspects of it. And you should be able to have the language to be like, okay, when you do this and you feel this happen, do this instead. We should be able to talk through and coach our athletes through movement better.
So I think you've touched on sort of 2 points, and I'll go back to yours, Jared, because yours is very interesting as well, and I've got a little story on that. But I don't know. So I think there's a piece of my mind that just like analyzes videos and like sees patterns. So I don't know if you'll see it, but if you go on TikTok or Instagram and you follow a bunch of strength coaches, like in 1 week you'll see them doing the exact same thing. And then the week after they'll sort of change into something else, but everyone will be sort of doing the same thing. And it's like I started noticing this where it was like everyone was doing pogos. Every scroll I did, there's just pogos. I was like, yeah, pogos are cool, but like they're pogos. Like we've been doing them,
Right.
but
There's no new
then
stuff.
isometric stuff is the current one that I'm seeing as well, and everyone's buying a specific brand of ISO equipment, and it's like, yes, isometrics are really good for force absorption, anything that you may need to also explode from movement, but like you're saying, if the intent isn't there to explode out of it or move athletically through it, like, do we need to focus that much time on it? Tim Shushamel actually had this brilliant example on a previous episode that we did, and it was like, we should look at these methodologies and see them in a sort of bell curve, right? So if we go isometrics, is like the least amount of movement you can do, so you're just still the whole time. And at the other end, you've got your ballistics, you've got your plyometrics, you've got like your explosive, twitchy stuff. Your athletes should be traveling through this on and off a lot. And you should essentially see what they're needing and where, again, going back to your RSIs and your quadrant, like, where are they fit? What do they need? Do they need a little bit more isometric? Do they need to control certain positions? Are they actually better off sort of going conjugate and exploring that max effort, max strength work? So it's like also using your coach's eye and making sure that everything's intentional for them is a lot better than just like, hey, here's the new thing, isometrics, go. Because like a conversation I have often is like, what is strength? Like, are athletes strong enough? What is strong enough? Like, it's obviously very relative, but they should be strong and explosive. Do they have that through isometrics? Maybe not all the way. So it's like, it's kind of identifying this sort of characteristics where they are and what they need.
Yeah, and like
Mhm.
everything, you just gotta make sure it's what your team needs.
Right.
You know, at that time and place, does your team need this? It's, like you said, Pogo's been around, isometrics have been around. You just have to make sure it's right for your team at that time and place. Even individual guys, some guys may need different stuff. I just think if you see stuff like that and you're scrolling, you just got to make sure that you have a reason for doing it, a good reason, and like a why for it. Basically, you just need to
Mhm.
know why you're doing it, and what it can help your guys with or your team with at that time.
And I think the coaches that have been around a while that are willing, like Jared said, to just absolutely share everything.
Mhm.
It's because they know that, okay, you can follow my program to a T. Like, well, shoot, we'll send over to Navy right now. We'll send them over everything. And then it doesn't mean that they're going to have the same athletes in front of you. They're going to get the same drive, the same results, or anything of that nature. So, I think part of that openness comes from some of, like, once you get experience, you realize that, like, okay, like, the logistics matter, the actual athlete matters, your eyes and your voice and all those presence pieces on the floor, those matter.
Yeah. Going back to Jared's point, again, I feel like I sometimes sound like a pompous prick when I'm mentioning the people I've spoken to. I was in Germany and I got a chance to sit down for like 2-3 hours with Meg Stone. And she was essentially telling me what it was like being the first female strength coach. And I was like, what was it back then? Like, because some coaches aren't as willing to share, we'll say. And she was like, actually, Boyd Epley sat me down and he was like, this is what's going to happen. This is what people are going to try and do to you. They'll discredit you at every corner. Don't listen to them. You have us. Call me anytime you need. And it was just that little switch for her that she was like, okay, I'm in the right industry. And like, I asked her afterwards, I was like, so compared to over the years, do you think it was more widely accessible to speak to each other than sort of now? And she was like, I mean, it's getting better, but yes, like back when it was just a couple of us, we shared everything with each other. And it was like sort of this like pendulum where like they were sharing everything. Now, like we then went to the other side and no one was sharing anything, and we're slowly coming back around and being able to be like, hey, Jared, what are you doing for this? Hey, Kenna, what's your thoughts on force plates? Hey, what's your thoughts on experimenting with programs? So like, this is why I love this industry now, is like we're just all a melting pot of each other.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're always using stuff from other people. Everyone's done a lot of things. There's a lot of
Right.
things that have been done out there. So if you're not taking or stealing from other people and like trying to make it your way, like, I don't know, like nothing I'm doing's original. Like I've seen it done with other places. I've talked to people. It's just you can put it together in a different way. You know.
Like, I went to the ASCA last year to talk, and Ashley Jones had, like, the best quote. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he worked with, like, the All Blacks, or, I had previously met him, like, in 2018, but, like, my probably favorite all-time quote is, like, "If you steal from one person, you are a thief. If you steal from everyone, it is research."
Mhm.
And I think we're all researching, we're all stealing from everybody, so get over it.
On that, I read a book it was called Steal Like an Artist. And it's exactly that. It's like there's not one original idea anymore. Like we're all just doing bastardized things of each other. So it's like, are we really stealing? Or is it just like a big melting pot of everything that's come before?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's what it is. Yeah, everyone, all your mentors and like everything, people you've talked to, you're all combined into one, and then you make it your own, and then someone else can take from you and make it their own, and it's just a big mesh of everyone.
I think that's another reason why I was like excited to talk to you both, and it was because like West Point is a high level school, and not only is it performance high, but like education wise, it's quite high as well. So like I know you have the options of having both equipment, so like the high tech and the still usable but low tech. So like force plates, jump mats, they're two very different things, but like the way that you are creating systems around everything that you have is just like, okay, they're not swearing by one thing. They're doing what's needed for what they have.
Yeah, and like we have to. I mean, you got to think like we can't like see our kids like in the middle of the day. So like everyone here is fighting for the same amount of hours, and then within that you're fighting for practice and a lift. So I got 5 of my guys for 45 minutes. And my guys or girls, like I've got to do what I can within that 45 minutes to get everything done. That's testing, training, So you just got to find a way, and like maybe one weight room's different than the other weight room, based on flow, and like, is it multiple teams? Is it just you? Is it you and 3 others, you and one other team, or do you have the entire weight room? Or time of year, sometimes you have more time, sometimes you have less. It just depends. So like you just got to be able to here, especially you just got to, like you said, create the system and like just be able to like use what you have, because we do have a lot of resources here. I mean, this is a phenomenal place, and you just have to be able to use those resources within the time that you're allotted, to make it the most efficient you can.
Well, time is your greatest resource, so if you go back to like what Jared said, like you have to know your why you're doing everything in the program. And then within your system, why is that in your system? Whatever facility you're in, you pick the method, meaning which movement, which exercise, which, toy you have. And so it's like you have your systems and then your why of what method to get it done that day. And it could change day to day. So even when you write a 4-week block, you might be in a different facility each week, or it might be pre-practice or post-practice one week going into the other. So you got to be adaptable.
How do you sort of become adaptable to a point where if your weight room changes last minute, I don't know if this is how it happens, is it all the same equipment on each weight room, or is it differences, or like how are you sort of able to adapt to each sort of ball that gets thrown at you?
Well, and I'm just going to go ahead and say most college weight rooms have like a rack and barbells, dumbbells to that extent. I mean, 45 pounds is 45 pounds, whether it's a shiny new Sorinex rack or it's like on a half rack and like a team room, whatever you have going on. And then you just have to, once that last minute change happens, okay, how many athletes do I have? How many racks do I have? What equipment do I have? What space? What time? What is the most important thing right now? Are they 2 days out of the game, or is this their off season? And then if you know your why of what you want to get done, I don't want to say easy, but it should, come to you about making the right decision in that moment of what they need.
Yeah, just having backup plans,
Yeah.
just making sure you think through it all, space, and like we have the majority of the same equipment at both weight rooms. It's just space. There might be a couple small things. Okay, if you're at this one, you can't do that. If you're at that one, you can do it. I think it's just having backup plans and knowing, being able to switch something. Okay, if I want to get something for your hamstrings, around your knee, like can we do Nordics, or does it have to be partner Nordics? Can we just do like hamstring curls with like rags? It just, as long as you are getting what you need, I think you just have to have a backup plan.
Yeah, and then also realize too, like, okay, warm-ups, right? Are we gonna have to do that outside of the weight room as one team right before us finishes, or are we gonna have like the turf area in our main big weight room, or are we gonna do it like at the court right before? Like, where am I gonna like get the team warmed up so we can just get right in and do like our main work? I think that having a sense of that, and then also the weather too, because you sometimes can't use outside in New York in the winter. Having that is also another piece of it, to like what actually needs the weight room and what can I kind of like get done before we get in. Can I talk them through things before we get in so we can just get right to work when I have the space?
Yeah, that's a good point too. What's a piece of advice that you would give coaches coming into this industry?
I think never stop learning. Like just always look into something, but always like you got to try it as well. I think you need to try what you're gonna do, but never like just complacent and just like do something because I don't know, it looks cool. Like have a reason, have a why, reach out to people. Maybe they are doing it for a different reason that makes sense or doesn't make sense. I think it's just don't be afraid to change or go simple or a little more complex, just depending on your situation. So I think that's one thing, just be flexible, I guess, and adaptable. That's the two biggest things, I guess.
I think just be more confident. Like so many young coaches are like, "Oh, I'm finding my voice. Oh, I'm like fake it or like find it faster. Or be confident with what you have right now." I wish I would have told myself that because like experience is like your best friend now that I'm like gaining years, right? That I wouldn't trade where I am in this journey now for who I was like 10 years ago. We've, like just gather that experience and be confident with it. And, that like the athletes are going to gravitate towards confidence.
Yep. No, that's perfect.
100%.
I appreciate you both for coming on. If you would like to link or shout out your Instagram pages if anyone wants to reach out and sort of ask further questions as well.
Mine is, oh goodness. I have my like maiden name and you go first.
Mine is Instagram is coach__woods. That's the best way to reach out to me. That's what I use the most.
Yeah. Kenna_Smoak.Minnici.
Perfect.
And then
Sorry.
Smoke is my maiden name, so that's what I go by, or like, I don't know. That's where I end up going by, or what I was before, 10 years into the field. So if you find me that way, probably faster than Minnici.
Perfect. Yous will also hopefully be able to share some programs so people can get involved. I know, Kenna, you've got some really cool postpartum strength training that you're doing. And Jared, if you want to link as well, anything, I'll post that out too.
Without a doubt, sounds
Yeah,
good.
definitely will. Yeah, I'm kind of, I have so many former female athletes or male athletes that now are starting a family and have sent their significant others over, women in the military. Definitely pivoted to kind of have like a postpartum training plan for women with like physically demanding jobs or athletic performance goals afterward. And it's not just like about losing weight or getting your dream body back for kids. It's about like, okay, I need the form and the function to be able to, not worry about like what I just went through.
Yeah. No, I've spoke to you about it too. I think it's
Yeah.
dope. I appreciate you both. Peace.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank you.
much.